Nam Vishnupadaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namani Namaste Saraswati Devam Gauravani Prachani Nivasesha Shunyavadi Paskachahadi Satani. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Bhagavad Gita, Chapter 1, Observing the Armies on the Battlefield of Kurukshetra. Comparing the opposing armies. Dhritarashtra said, O Sanjaya, after assembling in the place of pilgrimage at Kurukshetra, what did my sons and the sons of Pandu do, being desirous to fight? Sanjaya said, O king, after looking over the military phalanx arranged by the sons of Pandu, King Duryodhana went to his teacher and began to speak the following words. O my teacher, behold the great military phalanx of the sons of Pandu, so expertly arranged by your disciple, the son of Drupada. Here, in this army of the Pandavas, there are many heroic bowmen, equal in fighting to Bhima and Arjuna. There are also great fighters like Yudhana, Virata, and Drupada. There are also great heroic powerful fighters like Drishtaketu, Chekitana, Kasiraja, Purujit, Kuntiboja, and Saibya. There are very powerful charioteers like Yudamanyu, Uttamoja, the sons of Subhadra and Draupadi. The best of Brahmanas, for your information, let me tell you about the captains who are especially qualified to lead my military force. There are personalities like yourself, Bhishma, Karna, Kripa, Asvatthama, Vikana, and the son of Somadatta called Buddhishrava, who are always victorious in battle. There are many other heroes who are prepared to lay down their lives for my sake. All of them are well equipped with different kinds of weapons, and all are experienced in military science. Our strength is immeasurable, and we are perfectly protected by grandfather Bhishma, whereas the strength of the Pandavas, carefully protected by Bhima, is limited. Now all of you standing at your respective strategic points in the phalanx of the army must give full support to grandfather Bhishma. Thereafter, the great valiant grandsire of the Kuru dynasty, the grandfather of the fighters, blew his conch shell very loudly, like the sound of a lion, giving Duryodhana joy. After that, the conch shells, bugles, trumpets, and horns all suddenly vibrated simultaneously, and the sound was tumultuous. On the other side, both Lord Krishna and Arjuna, being situated on a chariot yoked with white horses, sounded their transcendental conch shells. Thereafter, Lord Krishna blew his conch shell named Panchajanya, Arjuna blew his, the Devadatta, and Bhima, the voracious eater and performer of Herculean tasks, blew his terrific conch shell named Pondra. Prince Yudhisthira, Kunti's son, blew his conch shell named Ananta Vijaya, and Nakula and Sahadev blew theirs named Sugosa and Manipushpaka. The great archer, the king of Kasi, the great fighter Sikandi, Dristajumna, Virata, and the unconquerable Satyaki, Drupada, the sons of Draupadi, and the others, O king, such as the son of Subhadra, greatly armed, all blew their respective conch shells. The blowing of all these different conch shells became uproarious, and vibrating both in the sky and on the earth, it shattered the hearts of the sons of Dhritarashtra. O king, at that time, Arjuna, the son of Pandu, who was seated in his chariot, his flag marked with Hanuman, was taking up his bow and was about to shoot his arrows, looking at the sons of Dhritarashtra. O king, he then spoke to Hrishikesha, Lord Krishna, these words. O infallible one, please place my chariot between the two armies, so that I may see who is present here, who is desirous of fighting, and with whom I must fight in this great trial of arms. Let me see those who have come here to fight, wishing to please the evil-minded son of Dhritarashtra. Sanjaya said, O descendant of Bharata, being thus addressed by Arjuna, Lord Krishna drew the fine chariot up in the midst of the armies of both parties. In the presence of Bhishma, Drona, and all other chieftains of the world, Hrishikesh the Lord said, Just behold, O Partha, all the Kurus that are assembled here. There Arjuna could see within the midst of both parties fathers and grandfathers, brothers, sons, grandsons, friends, and also fathers-in-law and well-wishers, all present there. The son of Kunti, Arjuna, after seeing all different grades of friends and relatives, became overwhelmed by compassion and spoke thus: "My dear Krishna, seeing my friends and relatives present before me with such a fighting spirit, I feel the limbs of my body quivering and my mouth drying up. My whole body is trembling and my hairs are standing on end. My bow Gandiva is slipping from my hand and my skin is burning. I am now unable to stand here any longer. I am forgetting myself and my mind is reeling. I foresee only evil, O killer of the Keshi demon. I do not see how any good can come from killing my own kinsmen in this battle. Nor can I, my dear Krishna, desire any consequent victory, kingdom or happiness. O Govinda, of what avail to us are kingdoms, happiness, or even life itself, when all those for whom we may desire them are now arrayed in this battlefield? O Madhusudana, when teachers, fathers, sons and grandfathers, maternal uncles, fathers-in-law, grandsons, brothers-in-law, and all relatives are ready to give up their lives and properties, and are standing before me, then why should I wish to kill them, though I may survive? O maintainer of all living entities, I am not prepared to fight with them even in exchange for all the three worlds, let alone this earth. Sin will overcome us by slaying such aggressors. Therefore, it is not proper for us to kill the sons of Dhritarashtra and his friends. What should we gain, O Krishna, O husband of the goddess of fortune? And how could we be happy by killing our own kinsmen? O Janardhan, although these men, overtaken by greed, see no fault in killing a family or fighting with friends, why should we, with knowledge of the sin, engage in these acts? By the destruction of a dynasty, the eternal family tradition is vanquished, and thus the rest of the family becomes involved in irreligion. When irreligion is prominent in the family, O Krishna, the ladies of the family become corrupt. And from the degradation of womanhood, O descendant of Vrishni, comes unwanted progeny. When there is an increase of unwanted population, a hellish situation is created both for the family and for those who destroy the family. Tradition. In such corrupt families, there is no offering of oblations of food and water to the ancestors. By the evil deeds of the destroyers of family tradition, all kinds of community projects and family welfare activities are devastated. O Krishna, maintainer of the people, I have heard by disciplic succession that those who destroy family traditions dwell always in hell. Alas, how strange it is that we are preparing ourselves to commit great sinful acts, driven by the desire to enjoy royal happiness. I would consider it better for the sons of Dhritarashtra to kill me, unarmed and unresisting, rather than fight with them. Sanjaya said, Arjuna, having thus spoken, cast aside his bow and arrows and sat down on the chariot, his mind overwhelmed with grief. Chapter 2, Contents of the Gita Summarized. Sanjaya said, seeing Arjuna full of compassion and very sorrowful, his eyes brimming with tears, Madhusudana, Krishna, spoke the following words. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, My dear Arjuna, how have these impurities come upon you? They are not at all befitting a man who knows the progressive values of life. They lead not to higher planets but to infamy. O son of Pritha, do not yield to this degrading impotence. It does not become you. Give up such petty weakness of heart and arise, O chastiser of the enemy. Arjuna said, O killer of Madhu, Krishna, how can I counter-attack with arrows in battle personalities like Bhishma and Drona who are worthy of my worship? It is better to live in this world by begging than to live at the cost of the lives of great souls who are my teachers. Even though they are avaricious, they are nonetheless superiors. If they are killed, our spoils will be tainted with blood. Nor do we know which is better, conquering them or being conquered by them. The sons of Dhritarashtra, whom if we killed, we should not care to live, are now standing before us on this battlefield. Now I am confused about duty and have lost all composure because of weakness. In this condition I am asking you to tell me clearly what is the best for me. Now I am your disciple and a soul surrendered unto you. Please instruct me. I can find no means to drive away this grief which is drying up my senses. I will not be able to destroy it, even if I win an unrivaled kingdom on the earth, with sovereignty like the demigods in heaven. Sanjaya said, having spoken thus, Arjuna, chastiser of enemies, told Krishna, Govinda, I shall not fight, and fell silent. O descendant of Bharata, at that time Krishna, smiling in the midst of both the armies, spoke the following words to the grief-stricken Arjuna. The blessed Lord said, while speaking learned words, you are mourning for that which is not worthy of grief. Those who are wise lament neither for the living nor the dead. Never was there a time when I did not exist, nor you, nor all these kings, nor in the future shall any of us cease to be. As the embodied soul continually passes in this body from boyhood to youth, and then to old age, the soul, similarly, passes into another body at death. The self-realized soul is not bewildered by such a change. O son of Kunti, the non-permanent appearance of heat and cold, happiness and distress, and their disappearance in due course are like the appearance and disappearance of winter and summer seasons. They arise from sense perception, O scion of Bharata, and one must learn to tolerate them without being disturbed. O best among men, Arjuna, the person who is not disturbed by happiness and distress, and is steady in both, is certainly eligible for liberation. Those who are seers of the truth have concluded that of the non-existent there is no endurance, and of the eternal there is no cessation. Seers have concluded this by studying the nature of both. That which pervades the entire body is indestructible. No one is able to destroy the imperishable soul. Only the material body of the indestructible, immeasurable, and eternal living entity is subject to destruction. Therefore fight, O descendant of Bharata. He who thinks that the living entity is the slayer, or that the entity is slain, does not understand. One who is in knowledge knows that the self slays not, nor is slain. For the soul there is never birth nor death, nor having once been does he ever cease to be. He is unborn, eternal, ever-existing, undying, and primeval. He is not slain when the body is slain. O Partha, how can a person who knows that the soul is indestructible, unborn, eternal, and immutable, kill anyone, or cause anyone to kill? As a person puts on new garments, giving up old ones, similarly, the soul accepts new material bodies, giving up the old and useless ones. The soul can never be cut into pieces by any weapon, nor can he be burned by fire, nor moistened by water, nor withered by the wind. The individual soul is unbreakable and insoluble, and can be neither burned nor dried. He is everlasting, all-pervading, unchangeable, immovable, and eternally the same. It is said that the soul is invisible, inconceivable, immutable, and unchangeable. Knowing this, you should not grieve for the body. If, however, you think the soul is perpetually born and always dies, still you have no reason to lament, O mighty Ananda. For one who has taken his birth, death is certain, and for one who is dead, birth is certain. Therefore, in the unavoidable discharge of your duty, you should not lament. All created beings are unmanifest in their beginnings, manifest in their interim state, and unmanifest again when they are annihilated. So what need is there for lamentation? Some look on the soul as amazing, some describe him as amazing, and some hear of him as amazing, while others, even after hearing about him, cannot understand him at all. O descendant of Bharata, he who dwells in the body is eternal and can never be slain. Therefore you need not grieve for any creature. Considering your specific duty as a kshatriya, you should know that there is no better engagement for you than fighting on religious principles, and so there is no need for hesitation. O Partha, happy are the kshatriyas to whom such fighting opportunities come unsought, opening for them the doors of the heavenly planets. If, however, you do not fight this religious war, then you will certainly incur sin for neglecting your duties, and thus lose your reputation as a fighter. People will always speak of your infamy, and for one who has been honoured, dishonour is worse than death. The great generals who have highly esteemed your name and fame will think that you have left the battlefield out of fear only, and thus they will consider you a coward. Your enemies will describe you in many unkind words and scorn your ability. What could be more painful for you? O son of Kunti, either you will be killed on the battlefield and attain the heavenly planets, or you will conquer and enjoy the earthly kingdom. Therefore get up and fight with determination. Do thou fight for the sake of fighting without considering happiness or distress, loss or gain, victory or defeat? And by so doing, you shall never incur sin. Thus far I have declared to you the analytical knowledge of Sankhya philosophy. Now listen to the knowledge of yoga, whereby one works without fruitive results, O son of Pritha. When you act by such intelligence, you can free yourself from the bondage of works. In this endeavour there is no loss or diminution, and a little advancement on this path can protect one from the most dangerous types of fear. Those who are on this path are resolute in purpose, and their aim is one. O beloved child of the Kurus, the intelligence of those who are irresolute is many-branched. Men of small knowledge are very much attached to the flowery words of the Vedas, which recommend various fruitive activities for elevation to heavenly planets, resultant good birth, power, and so forth. Being desirous of sense gratification and opulent life, they say that there is nothing more than this. In the minds of those who are too much attached to sense enjoyment and material opulence, and who are bewildered by such things, the resolute determination for devotional service to the Lord does not take place. The Vedas deal with the subject of the three modes of material nature. Rise above these modes, O Arjuna. Be transcendental to all of them. Be free from all dualities and from all anxieties for gain and safety, and be established in the self. All purposes that are served by the small pond can at once be served by the great reservoirs of water. Similarly, all the purposes of the Vedas can be served to one who knows the purpose behind them. You have a right to perform your prescribed duties, but you are not entitled to the fruits of action. Never consider yourself the cause of action, and never be attached to inaction. Be steadfast in your duty, O Arjuna, and abandon all attachment to success or failure. Such evenness of mind is called yoga. O Dhananjaya, rid yourself of all fruitive activities by devotional service, and surrender fully to that consciousness. Those who want to enjoy the fruits of their work are misers. A man engaged in devotional service rids himself of both good and bad actions, even in this life. Therefore strive for this yoga, O Arjuna, which is the art of all work. The wise, engaged in devotional service, take refuge in the Lord, and free themselves from the cycle of birth and death by renouncing the fruits of action in the material world. In this way they can attain that state beyond all miseries. When your intelligence has passed out of the dense forest of delusion, you will become indifferent to all that has been heard and all that is to be heard. When your mind is no longer disturbed by the flowery language of the Vedas, and when it remains fixed in the trance of self-realization, then you will have attained the divine consciousness. Arjuna said, "What are the symptoms of one whose consciousness is thus merged in transcendence? How does he speak, and what is his language? How does he sit, and how does he walk?" The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, O Partha, when a man gives up all varieties of sense desire, which arise of invention, and when his mind finds satisfaction in the self alone, then he is said to be in pure transcendental consciousness. One who is not disturbed in spite of the threefold miseries, who is not elated when there is happiness, and who is free from attachment, fear and anger, is called a sage of steady mind. He who is without affection, either for good or evil, is firmly fixed in perfect knowledge. One who is able to withdraw his senses from sense objects, as the tortoise draws his limbs within the shell, is to be understood as truly situated in knowledge. The embodied soul may be restricted from sense enjoyment, though the taste for sense objects remain. But ceasing such engagements by experiencing a higher taste, he is fixed in consciousness. The senses are so strong and impetuous, O Arjuna, that they forcibly carry away the mind even of a man of discrimination who is endeavouring to control them. One who restrains his senses and fixes consciousness upon me is known as a man of steady intelligence. While contemplating the objects of the senses, a person develops attachment for them, and from such attachment lust develops, and from lust anger arises, from anger delusion arises, and from delusion bewilderment of memory. When memory is bewildered, intelligence is lost, and when intelligence is lost, one falls down again into the material pool. One who can control his senses by regulated principles, and who is free from attachment and aversion, can obtain the mercy of God. For one who is so situated, the threefold miseries of material life exist no longer. In such a happy state, one's intelligence is steady. One who is not in transcendental consciousness can have neither a controlled mind nor steady intelligence, without which there is no possibility of peace. And how can there be any happiness without peace? As a boat on the water is swept away by a strong wind, even so, one of the senses in which the mind becomes fixed can carry away a man's intelligence. Therefore, O mighty armed, one whose senses are restrained from their objects is certainly of steady intelligence. What is night for all beings is the time of awakening for the self-controlled, and the time of awakening for all beings is night for the introspective sage. A person who is not disturbed by the incessant flow of desires that enter like rivers into the ocean, which is ever being filled but is always still, can alone achieve peace, and not the man who strives to satisfy such desires. A person who has given up all desires for sense gratification, who lives free from desires, who has given up all sense of proprietorship, and is devoid of false ego, he alone can attain real peace. That is the way of the spiritual and godly life, after attaining which a man is not bewildered. Being so situated, even at the hour of death, one can enter into the kingdom of God. Chapter 3, Karma Yoga. Arjuna said, O Janardhan, O Keshava, why do you urge me to engage in this ghastly warfare, if you think that intelligence is better than fruitive work? My intelligence is bewildered by your equivocal instructions. Therefore, please tell me decisively what is most beneficial for me. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, O sinless Arjuna, I have already explained that there are two classes of men who realize the self. Some are inclined to understand him by empirical, philosophical speculation, and others are inclined to know him by devotional service. Not by merely abstaining from work can one achieve freedom from reaction, nor by renunciation alone can one attain perfection. All men are forced to act helplessly according to the impulses born of the modes of material nature. Therefore no one can refrain from doing something, not even for a moment. One who restrains the senses and organs of action, but whose mind dwells on sense objects, certainly deludes himself and is called a pretender. On the other hand, He who controls the senses by the mind and engages his active organs in works of devotion without attachment is by far superior. Perform your prescribed duty, which is better than not working. A man cannot even maintain his physical body without work. Work done as a sacrifice for Vishnu has to be performed. Otherwise, work binds one to this material world. Therefore, O son of Kunti, perform prescribed duties for his satisfaction, and in that way you will always remain unattached and free from bondage. In the beginning of creation, the Lord of all creatures sent forth generations of men and demigods, along with sacrifices for Vishnu, and blessed them by saying, "Be thou happy by this yajna," sacrifice, because its performance will bestow upon you all desirable things. The demigods, being pleased by sacrifices, will also please you. Thus nourishing one another, there will reign general prosperity for all. In charge of the various necessities of life, the demigods, being satisfied by the performance of yajna, supply all needs to man. But he who enjoys these gifts without offering them to the demigods in return is certainly a thief. The devotees of the Lord are released from all sins, because they eat food which is offered first for sacrifice. Others who prepare food for personal sense enjoyment, verily eat only sin. All living bodies subsist on food grains. Food grains are produced from rains. Rains come from performance of sacrifice, and sacrifice is born of prescribed duties. Regulated activities arise from the Vedas, and the Vedas spring from the Supreme Godhead. Therefore, the all-pervading transcendence is eternally situated in acts of sacrifice. My dear Arjuna, a man who does not follow this prescribed Vedic system of sacrifice certainly leads a life of sin, for a person delighting only in the senses lives in vain. One who is, however, taking pleasure in the self, who is illumined in the self, who rejoices in and is satisfied with the self only, fully satiated, for him there is no duty. A self-realized man has no purpose to fulfill in the discharge of his prescribed duties, nor has he any reason not to perform such work, nor has he any need to depend on any other living being. Therefore, without being attached to the fruits of activities, one should act as a matter of duty, for by working without attachment, one attains the supreme. Even kings like Janaka attain the perfectional stage by performance of prescribed duties. Therefore, just for the sake of educating the people in general, you should perform your work. Whatever action a great man performs, common men follow, and whatever standard he sets by exemplary acts, all the world pursues. O son of Pritha, no work is prescribed for me within all the three planetary systems. Nor am I in want of anything, nor have I the need to obtain anything, and yet I am engaged in work. For if I did not engage in work, O Partha, certainly all men would follow my path. If I should cease to work, then all these worlds would be put to ruination, and I would be the cause of creating unwanted population, and I would therefore destroy the peace of all sentient beings. As the ignorant perform their duties with attachment to results, so the learned may also act, but without attachment, for the sake of leading people on the right path. Let not the wise disrupt the minds of the ignorant who are attached to fruitive action. They should be encouraged not to refrain from work, but to engage in work in the spirit of devotion. The bewildered spirit soul, under the influence of the three modes of material nature, thinks himself to be the doer of activities that are in actuality carried out by nature. One who is in knowledge of the absolute truth, O mighty armed, does not engage himself in the senses and sense gratification, knowing well the difference between work in devotion and work for fruitive results. Bewildered by the modes of material nature, the ignorant fully engage themselves in material activities and become attached, but the wise should not unsettle them, although these duties are inferior due to the performer's lack of knowledge. Therefore, O Arjuna, surrendering all your works unto me, with your mind intent on me, and without desire for gain and free from egoism and lethargy, fight. One who executes his duties according to my injunctions and who follows this teaching faithfully becomes free from the bondage of fruitive actions. But those who, out of envy, disregard these teachings and do not practice them regularly are to be considered bereft of all knowledge, befooled, and doomed to ignorance and bondage. Even a man of knowledge acts according to his own nature, for everyone follows his nature. What can repression accomplish? Attraction and repulsion for sense objects are felt by embodied beings, but one should not fall under the control of the senses and sense objects, because they are stumbling blocks on the path of self-realization. It is far better to discharge one's prescribed duties, even though they may be faulty, than another's duties. Destruction in the course of performing one's own duty is better than engaging in another's duties, for to follow another's path is dangerous. Arjuna said, O descendant of Vrishni, by what is one impelled to sinful acts, even unwillingly, as if engaged by force? The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, It is lust only, Arjuna, which is born of contact with the material modes of passion and later transformed into wrath, and which is the all-devouring, sinful enemy of this world. As fire is covered by smoke, as a mirror is covered by dust, or as the embryo is covered by the womb, similarly the living entity is covered by different degrees of this lust. Thus a man's pure consciousness is covered by his eternal enemy in the form of lust, which is never satisfied and which burns like fire. The senses, the mind, and the intelligence are the sitting places of this lust, which veils the real knowledge of the living entity and bewilders him. Therefore, O Arjuna, best of the Bharatas, in the very beginning curb the great symbol of sin, lust, by regulating the senses, and slay this destroyer of knowledge and self-realization. The working senses are superior to dull matter. Mind is higher than the senses. Intelligence is still higher than the mind, and he, the soul, is even higher than the intelligence. Thus, knowing oneself to be transcendental to material senses, mind and intelligence, one should control the lower self by the higher self, and thus, by spiritual strength, conquer this insatiable enemy known as lust. Chapter 4. Transcendental Knowledge. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, I instructed this imperishable science of yoga to the sun god Vivashvan, and Vivashvan instructed it to Manu, the father of mankind, and Manu in turn instructed it to Ikshvaku. This supreme science was thus received through the chain of disciplic succession, and the saintly kings understood it in that way. But in the course of time the succession was broken, and therefore the science as it is appears to be lost. That very ancient science of the relationship with the Supreme is today told by me to you, because you are my devotee as well as my friend. Therefore you can understand the transcendental mystery of this science. Arjuna said, the sun god Vivashvan is senior by birth to you. How am I to understand that in the beginning you instructed this science to him? The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, many, many births both you and I have passed. I can remember all of them, but you cannot, O subduer of the enemy. Although I am unborn, and my transcendental body never deteriorates, and although I am the Lord of all sentient beings, I still appear in every millennium in my original transcendental form. Whenever and wherever there is a decline in religious practice, O descendant of Bharata, and a predominant rise of irreligion, at that time I descend myself, to deliver the pious and to annihilate the miscreants, as well as to establish the principles of religion. I advent myself millennium after millennium. one who knows the transcendental nature of my appearance and activities, does not, upon leaving the body, take his birth again in this material world, but attains my eternal abode, O Arjuna. Being freed from attachment, fear and anger, being fully absorbed in me, and taking refuge in me, many persons in the past became purified, and thus they all attained transcendental love for me. All of them, as they surrender unto me, I reward accordingly. Everyone follows my path in all respects, O son of Pritha. Men in this world desire success in fruitive activities, and therefore they worship the demigods. Quickly, of course, men get result from fruitive work in this world. According to the three modes of material nature, and the work ascribed to them, the corresponding four divisions of human society were created by me. And although I am the creator of this system, you should know that I am yet the non-doer, being unchangeable. There is no work that affects me, nor do I aspire for the fruits of action. One who understands this truth about me does not become entangled in the fruitive reactions of work. All the liberated souls in ancient times acted with this understanding, and so attained liberation. Therefore, as did the ancients, you should perform your duty in this divine consciousness. Even the intelligent are bewildered in determining what is action and what is inaction. Now I shall explain to you what action is, knowing which you shall be liberated from all sins. The intricacies of action are very hard to understand. Therefore one should know properly what action is, what forbidden action is, and what inaction is. One who sees inaction in action, and action in inaction, is intelligent among men, and he is in the transcendental position, although engaged in all sorts of activities. One is understood to be in full knowledge, whose every act is devoid of desire for sense gratification. He is said by sages to be a worker whose fruitive action is burned up by the fire of perfect knowledge. Abandoning all attachment to the results of his activities, ever satisfied and independent, he performs no fruitive action, although engaged in all kinds of undertakings. Such a man of understanding acts with mind and intelligence perfectly controlled, gives up all sense of proprietorship over his possessions, and acts only for the bare necessities of life. Thus working, he is not affected by sinful reactions. He who is satisfied with gain which comes of its own accord, who is free from duality and does not envy, who is steady both in success and failure, is never entangled, although performing actions. The work of a man who is unattached to the modes of material nature, and who is fully situated in transcendental knowledge, merges entirely into transcendence. A person who is fully absorbed in Krishna consciousness is sure to attain the spiritual kingdom through his full contribution to spiritual activities, for the consummation is absolute, and the things offered are also of the same spiritual nature. Some yogis perfectly worship the demigods by offering different sacrifices to them, and some of them offer sacrifices in the fire of the Supreme Brahman. Some of them sacrifice the hearing process and senses in the fire of the controlled mind, and others sacrifice the objects of the senses, such as sound, in the fire of sacrifice. And some offer the work of the senses and the work of the life force controlling them in yoga to obtain knowledge of the self. There are others who, enlightened by sacrificing their material possessions in severe austerities, take strict vows and practice the yoga of eightfold mysticism. And others study the Vedas for the advancement of transcendental knowledge. And there are even others who are inclined to the process of breath restraint, to remain in trance, and they practice stopping the movement of the outgoing breath into the incoming, and incoming breath into the outgoing, and thus at last remaining trance, stopping all breathing, some of them curtailing the eating process, offer the outgoing breath into itself as a sacrifice. All these performers who know the meaning of sacrifice become cleansed of all sinful reactions, and having tasted the nectar of the remnants of such sacrifices, they go to the supreme eternal atmosphere. O best of the Kuru dynasty, without sacrifice one can never live happily on this planet or in this life. What then of the next? All these different types of sacrifice are approved by the Vedas, and all of them are born of different types of work. Knowing them as such, you will become liberated. O chastiser of the enemy, the sacrifice of knowledge is greater than the sacrifice of material possessions. O son of Pritha, after all, the sacrifice of work culminates in transcendental knowledge. Just try to learn the truth by approaching a spiritual master. Inquire from him submissively, and render service unto him. The self-realized soul can impart knowledge unto you, because he has seen the truth. And when you have thus learned the truth, you will know that all living beings are but part of me, and that they are in me, and are mine. If you are considered to be the most sinful of all sinners, when you are situated in the boat of transcendental knowledge, you will be able to cross over the ocean of miseries. As the blazing fire turns wood to ashes, O Arjuna, so does the fire of knowledge burn to ashes all reactions to material activities. In this world there is nothing so sublime and pure as transcendental knowledge. Such knowledge is the mature fruit of all mysticism, and one who has achieved this enjoys the self within himself in due course of time. A faithful man who is absorbed in transcendental knowledge, and who subdues his senses, quickly attains the supreme spiritual peace. But ignorant and faithless persons who doubt the revealed scriptures do not attain God consciousness. For the doubting soul, there is happiness neither in this world nor in the next. Therefore, one who has renounced the fruits of his actions, whose doubts are destroyed by transcendental knowledge, and who is situated firmly in the self, is not bound by works, O conqueror of riches. Therefore, the doubts which have arisen in your heart out of ignorance should be slashed by the weapon of knowledge. Armed with yoga, O Bharata, stand and fight. Chapter 5, Karma Yoga, Action in Krishna Consciousness. Arjuna said, O Krishna, first of all you ask me to renounce work, and then again you recommend work with devotion. Now will you kindly tell me definitely which of the two is more beneficial? The Blessed Lord said, the renunciation of work and work in devotion are both good for liberation. But of the two, work in devotional service is better than renunciation of works. One who neither hates nor desires the fruits of activities is known to be always renounced. Such a person, liberated from all dualities, easily overcomes material bondage, and is completely liberated, O mighty armed Arjuna. Only the ignorant speak of karma yoga and devotional service as being different from the analytical study of the material world, Sankhya. Those who are actually learned say that he who applies himself well to one of these paths achieves the results of both. One who knows that the position reached by means of renunciation can also be attained by devotional service, and who therefore sees that Sankhya and Yoga are on the same level, sees things as they are. Unless one is engaged in the devotional service of the Lord, mere renunciation of activities cannot make one happy. The sage, purified by works of devotion, achieves the supreme without delay. One who works in devotion, who is a pure soul, and who controls his mind and senses, is dear to everyone, and everyone is dear to him. Though always working, such a man is never entangled. A person in the divine consciousness, although engaged in seeing, hearing, touching, smelling, eating, moving about, sleeping and breathing, always knows within himself that he actually does nothing at all, because while evacuating, receiving, opening or closing his eyes, he always knows that only the material senses are engaged with their objects, and that he is aloof from them. One who performs his duty without attachment, surrendering the results into the Supreme God, is not affected by sinful action, just as the lotus leaf is untouched by water. The yogis abandoning attachment with body, mind and intelligence, and even with the senses, only for the purpose of purification. The steadily devoted soul attains unadulterated peace because he offers the results of all activities to me, whereas a person who is not in harmony with the divine, who is greedy for the fruits of his labor, becomes entangled. When the embodied living being neither does nor causes to be done, mentally renouncing all actions, he resides happily in the city of the 9 gates, the material body. The embodied spirit, master of the city of his body, does not create activities, nor does he induce people to act, nor does he create the fruits of action. All this is enacted by the modes of material nature. Nor does the Supreme Spirit assume anyone's sinful or pious activities. Embodied beings, however, are bewildered because of the ignorance which covers their real knowledge. When, however, one is enlightened with the knowledge by which nescience is destroyed, then his knowledge reveals everything as the sun lights up everything in the daytime. When one's intelligence, mind, faith, and refuge are all fixed in the Supreme, then one becomes fully cleansed of misgivings through complete knowledge, and thus proceeds straight on the path of liberation. The humble sage sees with equal vision a learned and gentle Brahmana, a cow, an elephant, a dog, and a dog-eater outcast. Those whose minds are established in sameness and equanimity have already conquered the conditions of birth and death. They are flawless like Brahman, and as such, they are already situated in Brahman. A person who neither rejoices upon achieving something pleasant, nor laments upon obtaining something unpleasant, who is self-intelligent, unbewildered, and who knows the science of God, is to be understood as already situated in transcendence. Such a liberated soul is not attracted to material sense pleasure, but is always in trance, enjoying the pleasure within. In this way, the self-realized person enjoys unlimited happiness, for he concentrates on the Supreme. An intelligent person does not take part in the sources of misery, which are due to contact with the material senses, O son of Kunti. Such pleasures have a beginning and an end, and so the wise man does not delight in them. Before giving up this present body, if one is able to tolerate the urges of the material senses, and check the force of desire and anger, he is a yogi and is happy in this world. One whose happiness is within, who is active within, who rejoices within, and is illumined within, is actually the perfect mystic. He is liberated in the Supreme, and ultimately he attains the Supreme. One who is beyond duality and doubt, whose mind is engaged within, who is always busy working for the welfare of all sentient beings, and who is free from all sins, achieves liberation in the Supreme. Those who are free from anger and all material desires, who are self-realized, self-disciplined, and constantly endeavoring for perfection, are assured of liberation in the Supreme in the very near future. Shutting out all external sense objects, keeping the eyes and vision concentrated between the 2 eyebrows, suspending the inward and outward breaths within their nostrils, and thus controlling the mind, senses, and intelligence. The transcendentalist becomes free from desire, fear, and anger. One who is always in this state is certainly liberated. The sages, knowing me as the ultimate purpose of all sacrifices and austerities, the supreme lord of all planets and demigods, and the benefactor and well-wisher of all living entities, attain peace from the pangs of material misery. Chapter 6, Sankhya Yoga. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, "One who is unattached to the fruits of his work, and who works as he is obligated, is in the renounced order of life, and he is the true mystic, not he who lights no fire and performs no work." What is called renunciation is the same as yoga, or linking oneself with the Supreme. For no one can become a yogi unless he renounces the desire for sense gratification. For one who is a neophyte in the Eightfold Yoga system, work is said to be the means. And for one who has already attained to yoga, cessation of all material activities is said to be the means. A person is said to have attained yoga when, having renounced all material desires, he neither acts for sense gratification nor engages in fruitive activities. A man must elevate himself by his own mind, not degrade himself. The mind is the friend of the conditioned soul, and his enemy as well. For he who has conquered his mind, it is the best of friends, but for one who has failed to do so, his very mind will be the greatest enemy. For one who has conquered the mind, the supersoul is already reached, for he has attained tranquility. To such a man, happiness and distress, heat and cold, honor and dishonor are all the same. A person is said to be established in self-realization and is called a yogi or mystic when he is fully satisfied by virtue of acquired knowledge and realization. Such a person is situated in transcendence and is self-controlled. He sees everything, whether it be pebbles, stones or gold, as the same. A person is said to be still further advanced when he regards all, the honest well-wisher, friends and enemies, the envious, the pious, the sinner, and those who are indifferent and impartial, with an equal mind. A transcendentalist should always try to concentrate his mind on the Supreme Self. He should live alone in a secluded place and should always carefully control his mind. He should be free from desires and possessiveness. To practice yoga, one should go to a secluded place and should lay krusa grass on the ground and then cover it with a deerskin and a soft cloth. The seat should neither be too high nor too low and should be situated in a sacred place. The yogi should then sit on it very firmly and should practice yoga by controlling the mind and the senses, purifying the heart and fixing the mind on one point. One should hold one's body, neck and head erect in a straight line and stare steadily at the tip of the nose. Thus with an unagitated, subdued mind, devoid of fear, completely free from sex life, one should meditate upon me within the heart and make me the ultimate goal of life. By meditating in this manner, always controlling the body, mind and activities, the mystic transcendentalist attains to the kingdom of God through cessation of material existence. There is no possibility of one's becoming a yogi, O Arjuna, if one eats too much or eats too little, sleeps too much or does not sleep enough. He who is regulated in his habits of eating, sleeping, working and recreation can mitigate all material pains by practicing the yoga system. When the yogi, by practice of yoga, disciplines his mental activities and becomes situated in transcendence, devoid of all material desires, he is said to have attained yoga. As a lamp in a windless place does not waver, so the transcendentalist, whose mind is controlled, remains always steady in his meditation on the transcendent self. In the state of perfection called trance or samadhi, One's mind is completely restrained from material mental activities by practice of yoga. This is characterized by one's ability to see the self by the pure mind and to relish and rejoice in the self. In that joyous state, one is situated in boundless transcendental happiness and enjoys himself through transcendental senses. Established thus, one never departs from the truth, and upon gaining this, he thinks there is no greater gain. Being situated in such a position, one is never shaken, even in the midst of the greatest difficulty. This, indeed, is actual freedom from all miseries arising from material contact. One should engage himself in the practice of yoga with undeviating determination and faith. One should abandon without exception all material desires born of false ego, and thus control all the senses on all sides by the mind. Gradually, step by step, with full conviction, one should become situated in trance by means of intelligence, and thus the mind should be fixed on the self alone, and should think of nothing else. From whatever and wherever the mind wanders, due to its flickering and unsteady nature, one must certainly withdraw it and bring it back under the control of the self. The yogi whose mind is fixed on me verily attains the highest happiness. By virtue of his identity with Brahman, he is liberated. His mind is peaceful, his passions are quieted, and he is freed from sin. Steady in the self, being freed from all material contamination, the yogi achieves the highest perfectional stage of happiness, in touch with the Supreme Consciousness. A true yogi observes me in all beings, and also sees every being in me. Indeed, the self-realized man sees me everywhere. For one who sees me everywhere and sees everything in me, I am never lost, nor is he ever lost to me. The yogi who knows that I and the Supersoul within all creatures are one, worships me and remains always in me in all circumstances. He is a perfect yogi who, by comparison to his own self, sees the true equality of all living entities, both in their happiness and distress, O Arjuna. Arjuna said, O Madhusudana, the system of yoga which you have summarized appears impractical and unendurable to me, for the mind is restless and unsteady. For the mind is restless, turbulent, obstinate, and very strong, O Krishna, and to subdue it is, it seems to me, more difficult than controlling the wind. The Blessed Lord said, O mighty armed son of Kunti, it is undoubtedly very difficult to curb the restless mind, but it is possible by constant practice and by detachment. For one whose mind is unbridled, self-realization is difficult work, but he whose mind is controlled and who strives by right means is assured of success. That is my judgment. Arjuna said, what is the destination of the man of faith who does not persevere, who in the beginning takes to the process of self-realization, but who later desists due to worldly mindedness, and thus does not attain perfection in mysticism? O mighty armed Krishna, does not such a man, being deviated from the path of transcendence, perish like a riven cloud, with no position in any sphere? This is my doubt, O Krishna, and I ask you to dispel it completely. But for yourself, no one is to be found who can destroy this doubt. The Blessed Lord said, O son of Pritha, a transcendentalist engaged in auspicious activities does not meet with destruction, either in this world or in the spiritual world. One who does good, my friend, is never overcome by evil. The unsuccessful yogi, after many, many years of enjoyment on the planets of the pious living entities, is born into the family of righteous people, or into a family of rich aristocracy, or he takes his birth in a family of transcendentalists, who are surely great in wisdom. Verily, such a birth is rare in this world. On taking such a birth, he again revives the divine consciousness of his previous life, and he tries to make further progress in order to achieve complete success, O son of Kuru. By virtue of the divine consciousness of his previous life, he automatically becomes attracted to the yogic principles, even without seeking them. Such an inquisitive transcendentalist, striving for yoga, stands always above the ritualistic principles of the scriptures. But when the yogi engages himself with sincere endeavour in making further progress, being washed of all contamination, then ultimately, after many, many births of practice, he attains the supreme goal. A yogi is greater than the ascetic, greater than the empiricist, and greater than the fruitive worker. Therefore, O Arjuna, in all circumstances be a yogi. And of all yogis, he who always abides in me with great faith, worshipping me in transcendental loving service, is most intimately united with me in yoga, and is the highest of all. Chapter 7. Knowledge of the Absolute. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, "Now hear, O son of Pritha, Arjuna, how by practicing yoga in full consciousness of me, with mind attached to me, you can know me in full, free from doubt. I shall now declare unto you in full this knowledge, both phenomenal and noumenal, by knowing which there shall remain nothing further to be known. Out of many thousands among men, one may endeavour for perfection, and of those who have achieved perfection, hardly one knows me in truth. Earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, intelligence, and false ego, altogether these 8 comprise my separated material energies. Besides this inferior nature, O mighty-armed Arjuna, there is a superior energy of mine, which consists of all living entities who are struggling with material nature and who are sustaining the universe. Of all that is material and all that is spiritual in this world, know for certain that I am both the origin and dissolution. O conqueror of wealth, Arjuna, there is no truth superior to me. Everything rests upon me, as pearls are strung on a thread. O son of Kunti, Arjuna, I am the taste of water, the light of the sun and the moon, the syllable Om in Vedic mantras. I am the sound in ether and ability in man. I am the original fragrance of the earth. I am the light in fire. I am the life of all that lives, and I am the penances of all ascetics. O son of Pritha, know that I am the original seed of all existences, the intelligence of the intelligent, and the prowess of all powerful men. I am the strength of the strong, devoid of passion and desire. I am sex life, which is not contrary to religious principles. O Lord of the Bharatas, Arjuna, all states of being, goodness, passion, or ignorance, are manifested by my energy. I am in one sense everything, but I am independent. I am not under the modes of this material nature. Deluded by the 3 modes of goodness, passion, and ignorance, the whole world does not know me, who am above them and inexhaustible. This divine energy of mine, consisting of the 3 modes of material nature, is difficult to overcome, but those who have surrendered unto me can easily cross beyond it. Those miscreants who are grossly foolish, lowest among mankind, whose knowledge is stolen by illusion, and who are of the atheistic nature of demons, do not surrender unto me. O best among the Bharatas, Arjuna, 4 kinds of pious men render devotional service unto me: the distressed, the desirer of wealth, the inquisitive, and he who is searching for knowledge of the Absolute. Of these, the wise one who is in full knowledge in union with me, through pure devotional service, is the best, for I am very dear to him, and he is very dear to me. All these devotees are undoubtedly magnanimous souls, But he who is situated in knowledge of me, I consider verily to dwell in me. Being engaged in my transcendental service, he attains me. After many, many births and deaths, he who is actually in knowledge surrenders unto me, knowing me to be the cause of all causes and all that is. Such a great soul is very rare. Those whose minds are distorted by material desires surrender unto the demigods and follow the particular rules and regulations of worship according to their own natures. I am in everyone's heart as the super soul, and as soon as one desires to worship the demigods, I make his faith steady so that he can devote himself to some particular deity. Endowed with such faith, he seeks favors of the demigods and obtains his desires. But in actuality, these benefits are bestowed by me alone. Men of small intelligence worship the demigods, and their fruits are limited and temporary. Those who worship the demigods go to the planets of the demigods, but my devotees reach my supreme abode. Unintelligent men who know me not think that I have assumed this form and personality. Due to their small knowledge, they do not know my higher nature, which is changeless and supreme. I am never manifest to the foolish and unintelligent. For them, I am covered by my eternal creative potency, Yoga Maya. And so the deluded world knows me not, who am unborn and infallible. O Arjuna, as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, I know everything which has happened in the past, and all that is happening in the present, and all things that are yet to come. I also know all living entities, but me no one knows. O sign of Bharata, Arjuna, O conqueror of the foe, all living entities are born into delusion, overcome by the dualities of desire and hate. Persons who have acted piously in previous lives and in this life whose sinful actions are completely eradicated and who are freed from the duality of delusion engage themselves in my service with determination. Intelligent persons who are endeavoring for liberation from old age and death take refuge in me in devotional service. They are actually Brahman because they entirely know everything about transcendental activities. Those who know me as the Supreme Lord, as the governing principle of the material manifestation, who knows me as the one underlying all the demigods and as the one sustaining all sacrifices, can with steadfast mind understand and know me even at the time of death. Chapter 8, Attaining the Supreme. Arjuna inquired, O my Lord, O Supreme Person, what is Brahman? What are the fruitive activities? What is this material manifestation? And what are the demigods? Kindly explain this to me. How does this Lord of Sacrifice live in the body? And in which part does he live, O Madhusudana? And how can those engaged in devotional service know you at the time of death? The Supreme Personality of Godhead replied, the indestructible, transcendental living entity is called Brahman, and his eternal nature is called the Self. An action pertaining to the development of these material bodies is called karma, or fruitive activities. The physical nature is known to be endlessly mutable. The universe is the cosmic form of the Supreme Lord, and I am that Lord represented as the Supersoul dwelling in the heart of every embodied being. Anyone who at the end of life quits his body, remembering me, attains immediately to my nature, and there is no doubt of this. In whatever condition one quits his present body, in his next life he will attain to that state of being without fail. Therefore, Arjuna, you should always think of me, and at the same time you should continue your prescribed duty and fight, with your mind and activities always fixed on me, and everything engaged in me, you will attain to me without doubt. By practicing this remembrance without being deviated, thinking ever of the Supreme Godhead, one is sure to achieve the planet of the Divine, the Supreme Personality, O son of Kunti. Think of the Supreme Person as one who knows everything, who is the oldest, who is the controller, who is smaller than the smallest, who is the maintainer of everything, who is beyond any material conception, who is inconceivable, and who is always a person. He is luminous like the sun, beyond this material nature, transcendental. One who at the time of death fixes his life airs between the eyebrows, and in full devotion engages himself in remembering the Supreme Lord, will certainly attain to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Learned persons and great sages in the renounced order shall enter into Brahman. Desiring such perfection, one practices celibacy. I shall now explain to you this process for attaining salvation. The yogic situation is that of detachment from all sensual engagements, closing all the doors of the senses and fixing the mind on the heart and the air of life on the top of the head. One establishes this situation. After being situated in this yoga practice and vibrating the sacred syllable Om, the supreme combination of letters, if one thinks of the Lord and thus quits his body, he will certainly reach the spiritual planets. For one who is without deviation in remembering me, I am easy to obtain, O son of Pritha, because of his constant engagement in devotional service. After attaining me, the great Mahatmas, yogis in devotion, never come back to this temporary world so full of miseries, because they have attained the highest perfection. From the highest planet in the material world down to the lowest, all are places of misery, where repeated birth and death take place. But one who attains to my abode, O son of Kunti, never takes birth again. By human calculation, 1,000 ages taken together is the duration of Brahma's one day, and such also is the duration of his night. In the day of Brahma, all living entities come into being, and when the night falls, all is annihilated. Again and again the day comes, and this host of beings is active, and again the night falls, O Partha, and this host is helplessly dissolved. There is another eternal nature, which is transcendental to this manifested and non-manifested matter. It is supreme and is never annihilated. When all in this world is annihilated, that part remains as it is. That supreme status is called unmanifested and infallible, and it is the highest destination. When one goes there, one never returns. That is my supreme abode. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, than whom no one is greater, is attainable by unalloyed devotion, O Arjuna. Although there, in his abode, still he is all-pervading, and everything is fixed within him. O best of the Bharatas, I shall now explain to you the different times at which, passing away from this world, one does or does not come back. Those who know the Supreme Brahman pass away from this world during the influence of the fiery god in the light at an auspicious moment, during the fortnight of the moon and the 6 months when the sun travels in the north. The mystic who passes away from this world during the smoke, the night, the moonless fortnight, or the 6 months when the sun passes to the south, again comes back. There are 2 ways of passing from this world, one in light and one in darkness. When one passes in light, he does not come back, but when one passes in darkness, he returns. O Arjuna, the devotees who know these different paths are never bewildered. Therefore, be always fixed in devotion. A person who accepts the path of devotional service is not bereft of any result of studying the Vedas, performing austere sacrifices, giving charity, or pursuing philosophical and fruitive activities. And at the end, he reaches the supreme abode. Chapter 9, the most confidential knowledge. The Supreme Lord said, "Because you are never envious of me, O Arjuna, I shall give you this most secret wisdom, knowing which you will be relieved from the miseries of material existence. This knowledge is the king of education, the most secret of all secrets. It is the purest knowledge, and because it gives direct perception of the self by realization, it is the perfection of religion. It is everlasting and joyfully performed. Those who are not faithful on the path of devotional service, O killer of the enemies, cannot achieve me. Therefore they come back to birth and death in this material world. In my unmanifested form, I pervade all this creation. All things are resting in me, but I am not in them. Again, everything that is created does not rest on me. Behold my mystic opulence. Although I am the maintainer of all living entities, and although I am everywhere, still my very self is the very source of creation. As in the great sky the wind is blowing everywhere, so all the cosmic manifestation is situated in me. O son of Kunti, at the end of the millennium, every material manifestation enters unto my nature, and at the beginning of another millennium, by my potency, I again create. The whole cosmic order is under me. By my will it is manifested again and again, and by my will it is annihilated at the end. O Dhananjaya, all this work cannot bind me. I am ever detached, seated as though neutral. This material nature is working under my direction, O son of Kunti, producing all moving and unmoving beings. By its rule, this manifestation is created and annihilated again and again. The foolish mock at me, at my descending like a human being. They do not know my transcendental nature and my supreme dominion over all that be. Those who are thus bewildered are attracted by demoniac and atheistic views. In that deluded condition, their hopes for liberation, their fruitive activities, and their culture of knowledge are all defeated. O son of Pritha, those who are not deluded, the great souls, are under the protection of the divine nature. They are fully engaged in devotional service because they know me as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, original and inexhaustible. They are always engaged in chanting my glories, endeavouring with great determination, offering a homage unto me. They worship me with devotion. Others who are engaged in the cultivation of knowledge worship the Supreme Lord as the one without a second, as diverse in many, and in the universal form. But it is I who am the ritual, I the sacrifice, the offering to the ancestors, the healing herb, the transcendental chant. I am the butter and the fire and the offering. I am the father, mother, maintainer, and grandfather of all this universe. I am what is to be known. I am purity, and I am the syllable Om. I am the Rig, Sama, and Yajur Vedas. I am the goal, the upholder, the master, the witness, the home, the shelter, and the most dear friend. I am the creation and the annihilation, the basis of everything, the resting place and the eternal seed. O Arjuna, I control heat, the rain, and the drought. I am immortality, and I am also death personified. Both being and non-being are in me. Those who study the Vedas and drink the Soma juice worship me indirectly, seeking the heavenly planets. They take birth on Indra Loka, where they enjoy godly delights. When they have thus enjoyed heavenly sense pleasure, they return to this mortal planet again. Thus, through the Vedic principles, they achieve only flickering happiness. But those who devote themselves steadfastly to me, meditating on my transcendental form, receive all bounties and securities from me. Whatever a man may sacrifice to other gods, O son of Kunti, is really meant for me alone, but it is offered without true understanding. For I am the only enjoyer and the only object of sacrifice. They fall down who do not recognize my true transcendental nature. Those who worship the demigods will take birth among the demigods. Those who worship ghosts and spirits will take birth among such beings, and those who worship me will live with me. If one offers me with love and devotion a leaf, a flower, fruit, or water, I will accept it. O son of Kunti, all that you do, all that you eat, all that you offer and give away, as well as all austerities that you may perform, should be done as an offering unto me. Thus you will be freed of all reactions to good and evil deeds, and by this principle of renunciation you will be liberated and come to me. I envy no one, nor am I partial to anyone. I am equal to all. But whoever renders service unto me in devotion is a friend, is in me, and I am a friend to him. One who is engaged in devotional service, even if he commits the most abominable actions, is to be considered saintly because he is rightly situated. Very shortly does he become righteous and attain to lasting peace, O son of Kunti. O son of Kunti, declare it boldly that my devotee will never perish. O son of Pritha, anyone who takes shelter in me, even a woman, a merchant, or one who is born in a low family, can approach the supreme destination. How much greater then are the Brahmanas, the righteous, the devotees and saintly kings, who in this temporary miserable world engage in devotional service to the Lord. Engage your mind always in thinking of me. Become my devotee. Engage your body in my service and surrender unto me, completely absorbed in me. Surely you will come to me. Chapter 10. The Opulence of the Absolute. The Supreme Lord said, Again, O mighty armed Arjuna, listen to my supreme word, which I shall impart to you for your benefit, and which will give you great joy. Neither the hosts of demigods nor the great sages know my origin, for in every respect I am the source of the demigods and the sages. He who knows me as the unborn, as the beginningless, as the supreme Lord of all the worlds, he, undeluded among men, is freed from all sins. Intelligence, knowledge, freedom from doubt and delusion, forgiveness, truthfulness, self-control, calmness, pleasure and pain, birth, death, fear, fearlessness, non-violence, equanimity, satisfaction, austerity, charity, fame and infamy are created by me alone. The 7 great sages, and before them the 4 other great sages, and the Manus, progenitors of mankind, are born out of my mind, and all creatures in these planets descend from them. He who knows in truth this glory and power of mine engages in unalloyed devotional service. Of this there is no doubt. I am the source of everything. From me the entire creation flows. Knowing this, the wise worship me with all their hearts. Their thoughts dwell in me, their lives are surrendered to me, and they derive great satisfaction and bliss enlightening one another and conversing about me. To those who are constantly devoted and worship me with love, I give the understanding by which they can come to me. Out of compassion for them, I, dwelling in their hearts, destroy with the shining lamp of knowledge the darkness born of ignorance. Bhagavad Gita, Chapter 10, verses 12 onwards. Arjuna said, You are the Supreme Brahman, the ultimate, the supreme abode and purifier, the absolute truth and the eternal divine person. You are the primal God, transcendental and original, and you are the unborn and all-pervading beauty. All the great sages such as Narada, Asita, Devala, and Vyas proclaim this of you, and now you yourself are declaring it to me. O Krishna, I totally accept as truth all that you have told me. Neither the gods nor demons, O Lord, know thy personality. Indeed, you alone know yourself by your own potencies, O origin of all, Lord of all beings, God of God, O Supreme Person, Lord of the universe. Please tell me in detail of your divine powers, by which you pervade all these worlds and abide in them. How should I meditate on you? In what various forms are you to be contemplated, O blessed Lord? Tell me again, in detail, O Janardhan, Krishna, of your mighty potencies and glories, for I never tire of hearing your ambrosial words. The blessed Lord said, Yes, I shall tell you of my splendorous manifestations, but only of those which are prominent, O Arjuna, for my opulence is limitless. I am the Self, O conqueror of sleep, seated in the hearts of all creatures. I am the beginning, the middle, and the end of all beings. Of the Adityas I am Vishnu. Of lights I am the radiant sun. I am Marichi of the Maruts, and among the stars I am the moon. Of the Vedas I am the Samaveda. Of the demigods I am Indra. Of the senses I am the mind. And in living beings I am consciousness. Of all the Rudras I am Lord Shiva. Of the Yakshas and Rakshasas I am the Lord of Wealth Kuvera. Of the Vasus I am fire Agni, and of mountains I am Meru. Of priests, O Arjuna, know me to be the chief, Brihaspati, the Lord of devotion. Of generals I am Skanda, the Lord of war, and of bodies of water I am the ocean. Of the great sages I am Brigu. Of vibrations I am the transcendental Om. Of sacrifices I am the chanting of the holy names Japa. And of immovable things I am the Himalayas. Of all trees I am the holy fig tree, and among sages and demigods I am Narada. Of the singers of the demigods, Gandharvas, I am Chitraratha, and among perfected beings I am the sage Kapila. Of horses know me to be Uchai who rose out of the ocean, born of the elixir of immortality. Of lordly elephants I am Airavata, and among men I am the monarch. Of weapons I am the thunderbolt. Among cows I am the Sarabi, givers of abundant milk. Of procreators I am Gandapa, the god of love. And of serpents I am Vasuki, the chief. Of the celestial Naga snakes I am Ananta. Of the aquatic deities I am Varuna. Of departed ancestors I am Aryama. And among the dispensers of law I am Yama, Lord of death. Among the Daitya demons I am the devoted Prahlad. Among subduers I am Time. Among the beasts I am the lion, and among birds I am Garuda, the feathered carrier of Vishnu. Of purifiers I am the wind. Of the wielders of weapon I am Rama. Of fishes I am the shark, and of flowing rivers I am the Ganges. Of all creations I am the beginning and the end, and also the middle, O Arjuna. Of all sciences I am the spiritual science of the self, and among logicians I am the conclusive truth. Of letters I am the letter A, and among compounds I am the dual word. I am also inexhaustible time, and of creators I am Brahma, whose manifold faces turn everywhere. I am all-devouring death, and I am the generator of all things yet to be. Among women I am fame, fortune, speech, memory, intelligence, faithfulness, and patience. Of hymns I am the Brihat Sama, sung to the Lord Indra, and of poetry I am the Gayatri verse, sung daily by Brahmanas. Of months I am November and December, and of seasons I am the flower-bearing spring. I am also the gambling of cheats, and of the splendid I am the splendor. I am victory, I am adventure, and I am the good quality in all superior men. Of the descendants of Vrishni I am Vasudeva, and of the Pandavas I am Arjuna. Of the sages I am Vyasa, and among great thinkers I am Ushana. Among punishments I am the rod of chastisement, and of those who seek victory I am mortality. Of secret things I am silence, and of the wise I am wisdom. Furthermore, O Arjuna, I am the generating seed of all existences. There is no being, moving or unmoving, that can exist without me. O mighty conqueror of enemies, there is no end to my divine manifestations. What I have spoken to you is but a mere indication of my infinite opulences. Know that all beautiful, glorious, and mighty creations spring from but a spark of my splendor. But what need is there, Arjuna, for all this detailed knowledge? With a single fragment of myself, I pervade and support this entire universe. Chapter 11. The Universal Form. Arjuna said, I have heard your instruction on confidential spiritual matters, which you have so kindly delivered unto me, and my illusion is now gone. O lotus-eyed one, I have heard from you in detail about the appearance and disappearance of every living entity, as realized within the nature of your inexhaustible glories. O greatest of all beings, O supreme form, though I see here before me your actual position, I yet wish to see how you have entered into this cosmic manifestation. I wish to see that form of yours. If you think that I am able to see your cosmic form, O my Lord, O Master of all mystic power, then kindly show me that universal self. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, My dear Arjuna, O son of Pritha, see now my opulences, hundreds of thousands of varied divine forms, multicolored like the sea. O best of the Bharatas, see here the different manifestations of Adityas, Rudras, and all the demigods. Behold the many things which none has ever seen or heard before. Whatever you want to see can be seen in this body all at once. This universal form can show you all that you now desire, as well as whatever you may want in the future. Everything is here completely. But you cannot see me with your present eyes. Therefore I give you divine eyes, so that you can behold my mystic opulence. Sanjaya said, O king, speaking thus, the Supreme, the Lord of all mystic power, the personality of Godhead, displayed his universal form to Arjuna. Arjuna saw in that universal form unlimited mouths and unlimited eyes. It was all wondrous. The form was decorated with divine dazzling ornaments and arrayed in many garbs. He was garlanded gloriously, and there were many scents smeared over his body. All was magnificent, all expanding, unlimited. This was seen by Arjuna. If hundreds of thousands of suns rose at once into the sky, they might resemble the effulgence of the Supreme Person in that universal form. At that time Arjuna could see in the universal form of the Lord the unlimited expansions of the universe, situated in one place, although divided into many, many thousands. At that time, bewildered and astonished, his hairs standing on end, Arjuna began to pray with folded hands, offering obeisance to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Arjuna said, My dear Lord Krishna, I see in your body all the demigods and different kinds of living entities assembled together. I see Brahma sitting on the lotus flower, as well as Lord Shiva and many sages and divine snakes. O Lord of the universe, I see in your universal body many, many forms, arms, bellies, mouths, eyes, expanded without limit. There is no end, there is no beginning, and there is no middle to all this. Your form is very hard to see on account of its glowing effulgence, which is fiery and immeasurable like the sun. You are the supreme primal objective. You are the best in all the universes. You are inexhaustible, and you are the oldest. You are the maintainer of religion, the eternal personality of Godhead. You are the origin without beginning, middle, or end. You have numberless arms, and the sun and moon are among your great unlimited eyes. By your own radiance you are heating this entire universe. Although you are one, you are spread throughout the sky and the planets, and in all the space between. O Great One, as I see this terrible form, all the planetary systems are perplexed. All the demigods surrender unto you, entering into you. Very much afraid, with folded hands, they are praying the Vedic hymns. The different manifestations of Lord Shiva, the Adityas, the Vasus, the Sadyas, the Vishvadevas, the two Asvins, the Maruts, the forefathers and the Gandharvas, the Yakshas, Asuras, and all perfected demigods are seeing you in wonder. O mighty armed one, all the planets with their demigods are perturbed at seeing your many faces, eyes, arms, bellies and legs, and your terrible teeth. And as they are perturbed, so am I. O all-pervading Vishnu, I am unable to keep the equilibrium of my mind. Seeing your radiant colour filling the skies, and seeing your mouths and eyes, I am afraid. O Lord of Lords, O refuge of the worlds, please be gracious towards me. I cannot keep my balance seeing thus your blazing death-like faces and awful teeth. I am bewildered in all directions. All the sons of Dhritarashtra, along with their allied kings, and Bhishma, Drona and Karna, and all our soldiers are rushing into your mouths, their heads smashed by your fearful teeth, and some I see being crushed between your teeth as well. As the rivers flow down to the ocean, so all these great warriors enter into your blazing mouths and perish. I see all people entering with full speed into your mouths, as moths hurry into a blazing fire. O Vishnu, I see you devouring all people in your blazing mouths, and covering all the universe by your immeasurable rays, scorching the worlds you are manifest. O Lord of Lords, so fierce of form, please tell me who you are. I offer my obeisances unto you. Please be gracious to me. I do not know what your mission is, and I desire to hear of this. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, Time I am, the destroyer of the worlds, and I have come to engage all people. Except for you, the Pandavas, all soldiers on both sides here will be slain. Therefore get up and prepare to fight. After conquering your enemies, you will enjoy the flourishing kingdom. They are already put to death by my arrangement, and you, O Savyasachin, can be but an instrument in the fight. The Blessed Lord said, all the great warriors, Drona, Bhishma, Jayadratha, Karna, are already destroyed. Simply fight, and you will vanquish your enemies. Sanjaya said to Dhritarashtra, O king, after hearing all these words from the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Arjuna trembled, fearfully offering obeisances with folded hands, and began falteringly to speak as follows. O Master of the senses, the world becomes joyful hearing your name, and thus do all become attached to you. The demons are afraid and flee here and there, while the perfect beings offer you their respectful homage. All this is rightly done. O Great One who stands above even Brahma, you are the original one. O refuge of the universe, you are the invincible source, the cause of all causes, transcendental to this material manifestation. You are the original personality, the Godhead. You are the only sanctuary of this manifested cosmic world. Knowing everything, you are all that is knowable. You are above the material modes, O limitless form. This whole cosmic manifestation is pervaded by you. You are air, fire, water, and the moon. You are the supreme controller and the grandfather. Thus I offer my respectful obeisances unto you 1,000 times, and again, and yet again. I offer my respects from the front, from behind, and from all sides, O unbounded power. You are the master of limitless might. You are all-pervading, and thus you are everything. I have in the past addressed you, O Krishna, O Yadava, O my friend, without knowing your glories, please forgive whatever I may have done in madness or in love. I have dishonored you many times while in relaxation, while lying on the same bed or eating together, sometimes alone and sometimes in front of many friends. Please excuse me for all the many offenses I have committed against you. You are the father of this complete cosmic manifestation, the worshipable chief, the spiritual master. No one is equal to you, nor can anyone be one with you. Within the three worlds you are immeasurable. You are the Supreme Lord, to be worshipped by every living being. Thus I fall down to offer you my respects, and I ask your mercy. As a father tolerates the impudence of his son, or a friend tolerates the impertinence of a friend, or a wife tolerates the familiarity of her partner, so should you tolerate those wrongs that I may have done to you. After seeing this universal form which I have never seen before, I am gladdened, but at the same time my mind is disturbed with fear. Please therefore reveal again your form as the personality of Godhead, to grace me, O Lord of Lords, O Sanctuary of the universe. O Universal Lord, I wish to see you in your four-handed form, with helmeted head, and with club, wheel, conch, and lotus flower in your hands. I long to see you in that form. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, My dear Arjuna, happily do I show you this universal form within the material world by my internal potency. No one before you has ever seen this unlimited and glaringly effulgent form. O best of the Kuru warriors, no one before you has seen this universal form of mine. For neither by studying the Veda, nor by performing sacrifices, nor by charities or similar activities can this form be seen. Only you have seen this. Your mind has been perturbed at seeing this horrible feature of mine. Now let it be finished, my devotee. Be free from all disturbance. With a peaceful mind, you can see my form as you have desired. Sanjaya said to Dhritarashtra, the Supreme Personality of Godhead Krishna, while speaking thus to Arjuna, displayed his real four-handed form, and at last he showed his two-handed form, thus encouraging the fearful Arjuna. When Arjuna thus saw Krishna in his original form, he said, Seeing this human-like form, so very beautiful, I am now settled in mind, and am restored to my original nature. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, My dear Arjuna, the form you are seeing now is very difficult to behold. Even the demigods are ever seeking the opportunity to see this form which is so dear. The form which you are seeing with your transcendental eyes cannot be understood simply by studying the Veda, nor by undergoing serious penances, nor by charity, nor by worship, not by these means can one see me as I am. My dear Arjuna, only by undivided devotional service can I be understood as I am, standing before you, and can thus be seen directly. Only in this way can you enter into the mysteries of my understanding. My dear Arjuna, anyone who is engaged in my pure devotional service, freed from the contamination of previous activities and from mental speculation, and who is friendly to every living entity, certainly comes to me. Chapter 12, Devotional Service. Arjuna inquired, Of those who are properly engaged in your devotional service, and those who worship the impersonal Brahman, the unmanifested, which is considered to be more perfect? The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, He whose mind is fixed on my personal form, always engaged in worshipping me with great and transcendental faith, is considered by me to be most perfect. But those who fully worship the unmanifested, that which lies beyond the perception of the senses, the all-pervading, inconceivable, fixed and immovable, the impersonal conception of the absolute truth, by controlling the various senses and being equally disposed everywhere, such persons, engaged in the welfare of all, at last achieve me. For those whose minds are attached to the unmanifested, impersonal feature of the Supreme, advancement is very troublesome. To make progress in that unmanifested discipline is always difficult for those who are embodied. For one who worships me, giving up all his activities unto me, and being devoted to me without deviation, engaged in devotional service and always meditating upon me, who has fixed his mind upon me, O son of Pritha. For him I am the swift deliverer from the ocean of birth and death. Just fix your mind upon me, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and engage all your intelligence in me. Thus you will live in me always, without a doubt. My dear Arjuna, O winner of wealth, if you cannot fix your mind upon me without deviation, then follow the regulated principles of Bhakti Yoga. In this way you will develop a desire to attain me. If you cannot practice the regulations of Bhakti Yoga, then just try to work for me, because by working for me you will come to the perfect stage. If, however, you are unable to work in Krishna consciousness, then try to act, giving up all the results of your work, and be self-situated. If you cannot take to this practice, then engage yourself in the cultivation of knowledge. Better than knowledge, however, is meditation, and better than meditation is renunciation of the fruits of action, for by such renunciation one may have peace of mind. One who is not envious, but is a kindly friend to all creatures, who does not think himself a proprietor, who is free from false ego, and equal both in happiness and distress, who is always satisfied and engaged in devotional service with determination, and whose mind and intelligence are fixed upon me, he is very dear to me. He for whom no one is put into difficulty, and who is not disturbed by anxiety, who is steady in happiness and distress, is very dear to me. A devotee who is not dependent on the ordinary course of activities, who is pure, expert, without cares, free from all pains, and not striving for some result, is very dear to me. One who does not grasp either pleasure or grief, who neither laments nor desires, and who renounces both auspicious and inauspicious things, is very dear to me. One who is equal to friends and enemies, who is equipoised in honour and dishonour, heat and cold, happiness and distress, fame and infamy, who is always free from contamination, always silent and satisfied with anything, who doesn't care for any residence, who is fixed in knowledge and engaged in devotional service, is very dear to me. He who follows this imperishable path of devotional service and completely engages himself with faith, making me the supreme goal, is very, very dear to me. Chapter 13, Nature, the Enjoyer and Consciousness. Arjuna said, O my dear Krishna, I wish to know about Prakriti, nature, Purusha, the enjoyer, and the field and knower of the field, and of knowledge and the end of knowledge. Then the Lord said, This body, O son of Kunti, is called the field, and one who knows this body is called the knower of the field. O sign of Bharata, you should understand that I am also the knower in all bodies, and to understand this body and its owner is called knowledge. That is my opinion. Now please hear my brief description of this field of activity, and how it is constituted, what its changes are, whence it is produced, who that knower of the field of activities is, and what his influences are. That knowledge of the field of activities and of the knower of activities is described by various sages in various Vedic writings, especially in the Vedanta Sutra, and is presented with all reasoning as to cause and effect. The 5 great elements, false ego, intelligence, the unmanifested, the 10 senses, the mind, the 5 sense objects, desire, hatred, happiness, distress, the aggregates, the life symptoms and convictions, all these are considered in summary to be the field of activities and its interactions. Humility, pridelessness, non-violence, tolerance, simplicity, approaching a bona fide spiritual master, cleanliness, steadfastness, and self-control, renunciation of the objects of sense gratification, absence of false ego, perception of the evil of birth, death, old age, and disease, non-attachment to children, wife, home, and so on, an equilibrium of the mind, devotion to the service of the Lord, the aspiration to live in a solitary place, detachment from the general mass of people, accepting the importance of self-realization and philosophical search for the absolute truth. All these are an aggregate called knowledge, and besides this, whatever there may be is ignorance. I shall now explain to you the knowable, knowing which you will taste the eternal. This is beginningless and subordinate to me. It is called Brahman, the Spirit, and it lies beyond the cause and effect of this material world. Everywhere are his hands and legs, his eyes and faces, and he hears everything. In this way the Supersoul exists. The Supersoul is the original source of all senses, yet he is without senses. He is unattached, although he is the maintainer of all living beings. He transcends the modes of nature, and at the same time is the master of all modes of material nature. The Supreme Truth exists both internally and externally, in the moving and the non-moving. He is beyond the power of the material senses to see or to know. Although far, far away, he is also near to all. Although the Supersoul appears to be divided, he is never divided. He is situated as one. Although he is the maintainer of every living entity, it is to be understood that he devours and develops. He is the source of light in all luminous objects. He is beyond the darkness of matter and is unmanifested. He is knowledge. He is the object of knowledge, and he is the goal of knowledge. He is situated in everyone's heart. Thus the field of activities, the body, knowledge, and the knowable have been summarily described by me. Only my devotees can understand this thoroughly and thus attain to my nature. The material nature and the living entities should be understood to have no beginning. The transformations and modes of matter are produced of this material nature. Nature is said to be the cause of all material activities and effects, whereas the living entity is the cause of the various sufferings and enjoyments in this world. The living entity in material nature thus follows the ways of life, enjoying the three modes of nature. This is due to his association with that material nature. Thus he meets with good and evil among various species. In this body there is another, a transcendental enjoyer, who is the Lord, the Supreme Proprietor, who exists as overseer and permitter, and who is known as the Supersoul. One who understands this philosophy of the material nature, the living entity, and the interaction of the modes of nature, is sure to attain liberation. He will not take birth here again, regardless of his position. That Supersoul is perceived by some through meditation, by some through the cultivation of knowledge, and by others through working without fruitive desire. Again, there are those not conversant in spiritual knowledge, who by hearing from others begin to worship the Supreme Person. Because of their tendency to hear from authorities, they also transcend the path of birth and death. O Chief of the Bharatas, whatever you see in existence, whether moving or unmoving, is only a combination of the field of activities and the knower of the field. One who sees the Supersoul accompanying the individual soul in all bodies, and understands that neither the soul nor the Supersoul is ever destroyed, actually sees. One who sees the Supersoul in every living being, and equal everywhere, does not degrade himself by his mind. Thus he approaches the transcendental destination. One who can see that all activities are done by the body, which is created of material nature, and that he himself does nothing, actually sees. When a sensible man ceases to see different identities due to different material bodies, he attains to the Brahman conception. Thus he sees that beings are expanded everywhere. Those with the vision of eternity can see that the soul is transcendental, eternal, and beyond the modes of nature. In spite of his contact with the material body, O Arjuna, he is not doing anything, nor is he entangled. Because of its subtle nature, the sky, although all-pervading, does not mix with anything. Similarly, the soul, situated in Brahman vision, does not mix with the body, though situated in that body. O son of Bharata, as the sun alone illuminates all this universe, so does the living entity, one within the body, illuminate the entire body by consciousness. One who knowingly sees this difference between the body and the owner of the body and can understand the process of liberation from this bondage attains to the supreme goal. Chapter 14. The Three Modes of Material Nature. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, "Again I shall declare to you the supreme wisdom, the best of all knowledge, knowing which all the sages have attained to supreme perfection. By becoming fixed in this knowledge, one can attain to the transcendental nature, like my own, and not to be born at the time of creation or disturbed at the time of dissolution. The total material substance called Brahman is the source of birth, and in that Brahman I create pregnancy. Thus come the possibilities for the birth of all living beings. It should be understood that all species of life, O son of Kunti, are made possible by birth in this material nature, and that I am the seed-giving father. Material nature consists of the three modes, goodness, passion, and ignorance. When the living entity comes in contact with nature, he becomes conditioned by these modes. O sinless one, the mode of goodness, being purer than the others, is illuminating, and it frees one from all sinful reactions. Those situated in that mode develop knowledge and become conditioned by the sense of happiness. The mode of passion is born of unlimited desires and longings, O son of Kunti, and because of this one is bound to material fruitive activities. O son of Bharata, the delusion of all living entities is the mode of ignorance. The results of this mode are madness, indolence, and sleep, which bind the conditioned soul. The mode of goodness conditions one to happiness. Passion conditions him to the fruits of action, and ignorance to madness. Sometimes the mode of passion becomes prominent, defeating the mode of goodness, O son of Bharata. And sometimes the mode of goodness defeats passion. Again, sometimes the mode of ignorance defeats goodness and passion. In this way, there is ever a competition for supremacy. The manifestation of the mode of goodness can be experienced when all the gates of one's body are illuminated by knowledge. O chief of the Bharatas, when there is an increase in the mode of passion, the symptoms of great attachment, uncontrollable desire, hankering, and intense endeavor develop. O son of Kuru, when there is an increase in the mode of ignorance, madness, illusion, inertia, and darkness are manifested. When one dies in the mode of goodness, he attains to the pure, higher planets. One who dies in the mode of passion takes birth among those engaged in fruitive activities, and one who dies in the mode of ignorance takes birth in the animal kingdom. By acting in the mode of goodness, one becomes purified. Works done in the mode of passion result in distress, and actions performed in the mode of ignorance result in foolishness. From the mode of goodness, real knowledge develops. From the mode of passion, greed develops. From the mode of ignorance, foolishness, madness, and illusion develop. Those situated in the mode of goodness gradually go upward to the higher planets. Those in the mode of passion live on the earthly planets, and those in ignorance go down to the hellish worlds. When you see that there is nothing beyond these modes of nature in all activities, and that the Supreme Lord is transcendental to these modes, then you can know my spiritual nature. When the embodied being is able to transcend these three qualities, he can become free from birth, death, old age, and their distresses, and can enjoy nectar even in this life. Arjuna inquired, O my dear Lord, by what symptoms is one known who is transcendental to those qualities? What is his behavior, and how does he transcend the modes of nature? The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, He who neither hates nor desires the development of the three qualities of illumination, attachment, and delusion, who is transcendently situated, remaining neutral through all the reactions of the modes, thinking that they may work, but that he is transcendental. He who looks equally upon happiness and distress, upon a pebble, a stone, or a piece of gold, who is equal toward the desirable and undesirable, who is steady and well situated, in defamation or in adoration, he who receives honor and dishonor equally, who treats friends and enemies alike, and who is not engaged in material activities, he is said to have transcended the three modes of material nature. One who is engaged in full devotional service, unfailing in all circumstances, at once transcends the modes of material nature, and thus comes to the level of Brahman. And I am the basis of the impersonal Brahman, which is immortal, imperishable, and eternal, and which is the constitutional position of ultimate happiness. Chapter 15, the Yoga of the Supreme Person. The Supreme Lord said, There is a banyan tree which has its roots upward and its branches down, and whose leaves are the Vedic hymns. One who knows this tree is the knower of the Vedas. The branches of this tree extend downward and upward, nourished by the three modes of material nature. The twigs are the objects of the senses, and this tree also has roots going down, bound to the fruitive actions of human society. The real form of this tree cannot be perceived in this world. No one can understand where it ends, where it begins, or where its foundation is. Using the weapon of detachment, one must cut down this banyan tree with determination. Thereafter, one must seek that situation from which, having gone, one never comes back. One must surrender to that Supreme Personality of Godhead from whom everything has begun and is extending since time immemorial. One who is free from illusion, false prestige, and false association, who understands the eternal, who is done with material lust, who is freed from the duality of happiness and distress, and who knows how to surrender unto the Supreme Person, attains to that eternal kingdom. That abode of mine is not illumined by the sun or moon, nor by electricity. One who reaches it never comes back to this material world. The living entities in this conditional world are my fragmental parts, and they are eternal. But due to conditioned life, they are struggling very hard with the six senses, which include the mind. The living entity in the material world carries his different conceptions of life, as the air carries aromas. Thus he takes one kind of body and again quits it to take another. The living entity, thus taking another gross body, obtains a particular type of ear, nose, tongue, and sense of touch centered about the mind. He thus enjoys a particular set of sense objects. The foolish cannot understand how a living entity can quit his body, or what sort of body he enjoys under the spell of the modes of nature. But one whose eyes are trained in knowledge can see this. The endeavoring transcendentalist, who is situated in self-realization, can see this all clearly. But those who are not situated in self-realization, though they may try, cannot see what is taking place. The splendor of the sun, which dissipates the darkness of this universe, is due to me, and the splendor of the moon and the splendor of fire are also from me. I enter into each planet, and by my energy these stay in orbit. I become the moon, and thereby supply the juice of life to all vegetables. I am the fire of digestion in every living body, and I am the air of life, outgoing and incoming, by which I digest the 4 kinds of foods. I am seated in everyone's heart, and from me come remembrance, knowledge, and forgetfulness. By all the Vedas I am to be known. I am the compiler of Vedanta, and I know the Vedas as they are. There are 2 classes of beings, the fallible and the infallible. In the material world, every entity is fallible, and in the spiritual world, every entity is called infallible. Besides these 2, there is the greatest living personality, the Lord Himself, who has entered into these worlds and is maintaining them. Because I am transcendental beyond both the fallible and the infallible, and because I am the greatest, I am celebrated both in the world and in the Vedas as that Supreme Person. Anyone who knows me as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, without doubting, is to be understood as the knower of everything, and he therefore engages himself in full devotional service, O son of Bharata. This is the most confidential part of the Vedic scriptures. O sinless one, disclosed now by me. Anyone who understands this will become wise, and his endeavors will know perfection. Chapter 16. The Divine and Demoniac Natures. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, fearlessness, purification of one's existence, cultivation of spiritual knowledge, charity, sense control, performance of sacrifice, study of the Vedas, austerity, simplicity, non-violence, truthfulness, freedom from anger, renunciation, peacefulness, aversion to fault-finding, compassion towards every living entity, freedom from grief, gentleness, shyness, determination, vigor, forgiveness, fortitude, cleanliness, and freedom from both envy and the passion for honor. These are the transcendental qualities born of the godly atmosphere, O son of Bharata. Those who are born with demoniac qualities exhibit pride, arrogance, false prestige, anger, harshness, and ignorance, O son of Pritha. The transcendental assets lead to liberation, whereas the demoniac assets are meant for bondage. But do not worry, O son of Pandu, for you are born with transcendental qualities. O son of Pritha, in this world there are 2 kinds of created beings. One is called divine and the other demoniac. I have already explained to you at length the divine qualities. Now I shall describe the demoniac. Those who are of demoniac quality do not know what is to be done and what is not to be done. They are unclean, they do not know how to behave, nor is there any truth in them. They say that this world is unreal, and that there is no foundation, and that there is no God in control. It is produced of sex desire, and has no other cause than lust. Following such conclusions, the demoniac, lost to themselves and without intelligence, engage in unbeneficial, horrible works meant to destroy the world. Taking shelter of insatiable lust, pride, and false prestige, and being thus illusioned, the demoniac are always sworn to unclean work, attracted by the impermanent. Their belief is that to gratify the senses until the end of life is the prime necessity of human civilization. Thus there is no measurement for their anxiety. Being bound by hundreds and thousands of desires, by lust and anger, they secure money by illegal means for sense gratification. The demoniac person thinks, so much wealth do I have today, and I will gain more according to my schemes. So much is mine now, and it will increase in the future, more and more. He is my enemy, and I have killed him, and my other enemy will also be killed. I am the Lord of everything. I am the enjoyer. I am perfect, powerful, and happy. I am the richest man, surrounded by aristocratic relatives. There is none so powerful and happy as I am. I shall perform sacrifices. I shall give some charity, and thus I shall rejoice. In this way, such persons are deluded by ignorance. Thus perplexed by various anxieties and bound by a network of illusions, one becomes too strongly attached to sense enjoyment and falls down into hell. Self-complacent and always impudent. Deluded by wealth and false prestige, they sometimes perform sacrifices in name only, without following any rules or regulations. Bewildered by false ego, strength, pride, lust and anger, the demon becomes envious of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is situated in his own body and in others, and blasphemes against the real religion. Because they are envious and mischievous, the lowest of men, I ever put them back into the ocean of material existence, into various demoniac species of life. Gaining repeated birth among the species of demoniac life, such persons can never approach me. Gradually they sink down to the most abominable position of existence. There are 3 gates leading down to hell: lust, anger and greed. Every sane man should give these up, for they lead to the degradation of the soul. One who is freed from these gates to hell, O son of Kunti, performs acts conducive to his self-realization, and thus gradually attains to the supreme destination. One who acts whimsically, not caring for the regulations of the scriptures, can never attain perfection, nor happiness, nor the supreme destination. One should understand what is duty and what is not duty by the regulations of the scriptures. Knowing such rules and regulations, one should act so that he may gradually be elevated. Chapter 17. The Divisions of Faith. Arjuna inquired, "What is the situation of one who does not follow the principles of scripture, but worships according to his own imagination? Is he in goodness, in passion, or in ignorance?" The Supreme Personality of Godhead answered, "According to the modes of nature, acquired by the embodied soul, there are 3 kinds of faith. Faith in goodness, in passion, and in ignorance. According to one's existence under the various modes of nature, one evolves a particular kind of faith. The living being is said to be of a particular faith according to the modes he has acquired. Men in the mode of goodness worship the demigods. Those in the mode of passion worship the demons, and those in the mode of darkness worship the dead and ghosts. There are those who undergo severe penances and austerities not mentioned in the scriptural injunctions. This they do out of pride, egoism, lust, and attachment, because they are impelled by passion. Those who parch the material elements of this body and the supersoul within it are to be known as demons. There are differences in eating, in forms of sacrifice, and in austerity and charity as well, according to the 3 modes of material nature. Now hear of these. Food in the mode of goodness increases the duration of life, purifies existence, gives strength and increases health, happiness and satisfaction. Such foods are juicy and fatty. They are very conducive to the healthy condition of the body. Food that is too bitter, too sour, too salty, too pungent, too dry, or too hot causes distress, misery, and disease. Such food is very dear to those in the modes of passion. Food prepared more than 3 hours before being eaten, which are tasteless, juiceless, decomposed, which have a bad smell, and which consists of remnants and untouchable things, are very dear to those in the mode of darkness. The performance of sacrifice in terms of the directions of the scriptures as a matter of duty, and with no desire for material results, is said to be in the mode of goodness. Any sacrifice performed with pride and for some material benefit, O chief of the Bharatas, should be known to be in the mode of passion. Any sacrifice performed without direction from scriptural injunctions, without Vedic hymns, without priestly remuneration, and without faith, must be considered to be in the mode of darkness. Austerity of the body consists of offering worship to the Supreme Lord, to Brahmanas, to the spiritual master, and to superiors like the father and mother. Cleanliness, simplicity, celibacy, and non-violence are also austerities of the body. Austerity in relation to the tongue consists of saying what is dear and truthful, not agitating others, and engaging in the study of the Vedas. Austerity in relation to the mind consists of satisfaction, simplicity, gravity, purity, and control. The penance a man performs without expectation of material benefit and only for the sake of the Supreme is called penance in goodness. Penance performed out of pride and to gain respect, honor, and worship is in the mode of passion. It is neither stable nor permanent. Penance performed out of foolishness, with self-torture, or through the frustration of others, is said to be in the mode of darkness. Charity given to a worthy person in the proper place and time, and as a matter of duty, without consideration of the benefit one might derive for oneself, is said to be in the mode of goodness. But charity performed with the expectation of some return, with a desire for fruitive results, or in a grudging mood, is said to be charity in the mode of passion. Charity given in an unpurified place at an unpurified time to unsuitable persons without proper attention and without respect is said to be in the mode of darkness. From the beginning of the creation, the three words Om Tat Sat were used to indicate the supreme absolute truth. Therefore, these three symbolic representations were used by Brahmanas while chanting the hymns of the Vedas and during sacrifices for the satisfaction of the Supreme. Thus the Transcendentalists undertake sacrifices, charities and penances, beginning always with Om, to attain the Supreme. One should perform sacrifice, penance and charity with the words Tat. The purpose of such transcendental activities is to get free from material entanglement. The absolute truth, the objective of devotional sacrifice, is indicated by the word Sat. These works of sacrifice, of penance and of charity, true to the absolute nature, are meant to please the Supreme Person, O son of Pritha. Sacrifices, charities and penances performed without faith in the Supreme are non-permanent. O son of Pritha, they are useless, both in this life and in the next. Chapter 18, Conclusion, the perfection of renunciation. Arjuna said, O mighty armed one, I wish to understand the purpose of renunciation and of the renounced order of life, O killer of the Keshi demon, O master of the senses. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, to give up the results of all activities is called renunciation by the wise, and that state is called the renounced order of life by great learned men. There are learned men who say that all kinds of fruitive activities should be given up, whereas other sages say that sacrifice, charity and penance should never be given up. O best of the Bharatas, hear from me now about renunciation. O tiger among men, there are three kinds of renunciation declared in the scriptures. Sacrifice, charity and penances are never to be given up. They must be performed by all intelligent men. They are purifying even for the great souls. All these activities should be performed without any expectation of result. They should be performed as a matter of duty, O son of Pritha. That is my final opinion. Prescribed duties should never be renounced. If by illusion one gives up his prescribed duties, such renunciation is said to be in the mode of ignorance. Anyone who gives up prescribed duties as troublesome or out of fear is said to be in the mode of passion. Such action never leads to the elevation of renunciation. O Arjuna, if one does everything as a matter of duty and gives up attachment to the results of his work, his renunciation is said to be in the mode of goodness. Those who do not hate any inauspicious work, who are not attached to auspicious work, and who are situated in the mode of goodness, have no doubts about work. It is not possible for an embodied soul to give up all activities, but he who renounces the results of activity is actually renounced. One who does not give up the fruits of his work achieves three kinds of results after death: auspicious, inauspicious, and mixed. But those who are in the renounced order of life have no such results to suffer or enjoy. O mighty armed one, according to Vedanta, there are 5 causes in the accomplishment of any kind of work. I shall now describe these to you: the place of action, the doer, the senses, the endeavor, and ultimately the supersoul. these are the 5 factors of action. Whether a man acts with his body, mind, or words, all his actions, right or wrong, are constituted of these 5 elements. Therefore, one who thinks himself the only doer, not considering the 5 factors, is certainly not very intelligent and cannot see things as they are. One who is not conducted by false ego and whose intelligence is not entangled, even though killing in this world, is not killing, nor is he bound by his actions. The stimuli to action are 3: knowledge, the object of knowledge, and the knower. In the accomplishment of work there are 3 factors: the senses, the work, and the doer. In terms of the modes of material nature, there are different kinds of knowledge, work, and workers, which you may now hear of from me. The knowledge of one who sees in every living entity one undivided spiritual nature, which is divided into innumerable forms, should be understood to be in the mode of goodness. The knowledge by which one sees that in every different body there is a different type of living entity is knowledge in the mode of passion. That sort of knowledge which is attached to one kind of work as all in all, without knowledge of the truth, and which is very meagre, is said to be in the mode of darkness. Work which is regulated and which is performed without attachment, love or hatred, and with no desire for fruitive results, is said to be in the mode of goodness. Work performed with a desire for its fruits, with great labour and under a false conception of the ego, is said to be in the mode of passion. Work performed in illusion, without consideration of future bondage, and without dependence on scriptural injunctions, work which is violent and distressing to others, is said to be in the mode of ignorance. The worker who performs his duty without association with the modes of material nature, without false ego, with great enthusiasm, and without wavering in success or failure, is said to be in the mode of goodness. The worker who is too attached to the work and to the result of the work, who wants to enjoy the result, is always envious, unclean, and subjected to joy and sorrow, is said to be in the mode of passion. The worker who is always engaged in work against the injunction of the scriptures, who is materialistic, obstinate, cheating, and expert in insulting others, who is lazy, always morose and procrastinating, is said to be in the mode of ignorance. O winner of wealth, Arjuna, I shall now speak to you in detail about the differences in intelligence and determination according to the different modes of material nature. Please hear of this from me. O son of Pritha, that understanding by which one can recognize actions that should be done and actions that should not be done, what is fearful and what is not fearful, what is binding and what is liberating, is known to be in the mode of goodness. O son of Pritha, that imperfect understanding which cannot distinguish between religion and irreligion, and which therefore mistakes action to be done with action not to be done, is said to be in the mode of passion. The understanding which considers irreligion to be religion, and religion to be irreligion, under the spell of illusion and darkness, striving always in the wrong direction, is said to be in the mode of ignorance. O son of Pritha, that determination which is unbreakable, which is sustained with steadfastness by yoga practice, and which thus controls the mind, life, and the acts of the senses, is in the mode of goodness. Determination sustained only for the fruitive results in religion, economic development, and sense gratification is in the mode of passion. That determination which cannot go beyond dreaming, fearfulness, lamentation, moroseness, and illusion, such unintelligent determination is in the mode of darkness. O best of the Bharatas, now please hear from me about the 3 kinds of happiness which a conditioned soul enjoys, and by which he sometimes comes to the end of all distress. That which in the beginning may be just like poison, but at the end is like nectar, and which awakens one to self-realization, is said to be happiness in the mode of goodness. Happiness derived from contact of the senses with their objects appears like nectar in the beginning, but at the end is just like poison. Such happiness is said to be in the mode of passion. That happiness which in the beginning and the end is blind to the process of self-realization and is based on sleep, laziness, and illusion is said to be in the mode of darkness. There is nothing existing either here or among the demigods in the higher planetary systems which is free from the three modes of material nature. Brahmanas, kshatriyas, vaishyas and sudras are distinguished by their qualities of work, or chastiser of the enemy, in accordance with the modes of nature. Peacefulness, self-control, austerity, purity, tolerance, honesty, wisdom, knowledge, and righteousness. These are the qualities by which the Brahmanas work. Heroism, power, determination, resourcefulness, courage in battle, generosity, and leadership are the qualities of work for the kshatriyas. Farming, cow protection, and business are the qualities of work for the vaishyas. And for the sudras there is labour and service to others. By following his qualities of work, every man can become perfect. Now please hear from me how this can be done. By worship of the Lord, who is the source of all beings and who is all-pervading, a man can become perfect while doing his work. It is better to be engaged in one's own occupation, even if one performs it imperfectly, than to accept another's occupation and perform it perfectly. Prescribed duties according to one's nature are never affected by sinful reactions. Every endeavour is covered with some sort of fault, just as fire is covered by smoke. Therefore one should not give up the work which is born of his nature, O son of Kunti, even if such work is full of fault. One can obtain the result of renunciation simply by self-control, and by becoming unattached to material things and disregarding material enjoyments. That is the highest perfectional stage of renunciation. O son of Kunti, learn from me how one can attain to the supreme perfectional stage of Brahman by acting in the way I shall now summarize. Being purified by his intelligence and controlling the mind with determination, giving up the objects of sense gratification, being freed from attachment and hatred, one who lives in a secluded place, who eats a small quantity of food, who controls the body and the speaking power, who is always in trance, detached and free from false ego, false strength, false pride, lust, anger, and acceptance of material things. Such a person is certainly elevated to the position of self-realization. One who is thus transcendentally situated at once realizes the supreme Brahman and becomes fully joyful. He never laments or desires to have anything. He is equally disposed towards every living entity. In that state he achieves pure devotional service unto me. One can understand the Supreme Personality as he is only by devotional service. And when one is in full consciousness of the Supreme Lord by such devotion, he can enter into the kingdom of God. Though engaged in all kinds of activities, the pure devotee, by my mercy, reaches the spiritual kingdom in the end, without pain. Just depend upon me for the results of all activities, and work always under my protection. In such devotional service, be fully conscious of me. One who becomes conscious of me passes over all the obstacles of conditioned life. However, if one does not work in such consciousness, but acts through false ego, not hearing me, he is lost. If you do not act according to my direction and do not fight, then you will be falsely directed. By your nature you will have to be engaged in warfare. Under illusion you are now declining to act according to my direction, but compelled by your own nature you will act all the same, O son of Kunti. The Supreme Lord is situated in everyone's heart, O Arjuna, and is directing the wanderings of all living entities who are seated as on a machine made of the material energy. O scion of Bharata, surrender unto him in all respects, and by his mercy you can have transcendental peace and attain the eternal abode. Thus I have explained to you the most confidential of all knowledge, Deliberate on this fully, and then do what you wish to do. Because you are my very dear friend, I am speaking to you the most confidential part of knowledge. Hear this from me, for it is for your benefit. Always think of me, become my devotee, worship me, and offer your homage unto me. Thus you will come to me without fail. I promise you this because you are my very dear friend. Give up all varieties of religion, and just surrender unto me. I shall protect you from all sinful reactions. Therefore you have nothing to fear. This confidential knowledge may not be explained to those who are not austere or devoted, or engaged in devotional service, nor to one who is envious of me. For anyone who explains this supreme secret to the devotees, devotional service is guaranteed, and at the end he will come back to me. There is no servant in this world more dear to me than he, nor will there ever be one more dear. And I declare that he who studies this sacred conversation worships me by his intelligence. And one who listens with faith and without envy becomes free from sinful reactions and attains to the planets where the pious dwell. O conqueror of wealth, Arjuna, have you heard this with your mind at perfect attention? And are your ignorance and illusion now dispelled? Arjuna said, My dear Krishna, O infallible one, my illusion is now gone. I have regained my memory by your mercy, and now I am steady and free from doubts, and am prepared to act according to your instructions. Sanjaya said, Thus I have heard the conversation of two great souls, Krishna and Arjuna, and so wonderful is that message that my hair is standing on end. By the mercy of Vyasa I have heard these most confidential talks directly from the master of all mysticism, Krishna, who was speaking personally to Arjuna. O king, in the repeated remembrance of that conversation between Krishna and Arjuna, I am taking pleasure, being thrilled at every moment. O king, as I remember the wonderful form of Lord Krishna, I am struck with greater and greater wonder, and I rejoice again and again. Wherever there is Krishna, the master of all mystics, and wherever there is Arjuna, the supreme archer, there will also certainly be opulence, victory, extraordinary power, and morality. That is my opinion. Thus ends the Bhagavad Gita. Sri Isha Upanishad. Invocation. The personality of Godhead is perfect and complete, and because he is completely perfect, all emanations from him, such as this phenomenal world, are perfectly equipped as complete wholes. Whatever is produced of the complete whole is also complete in itself. Because he is the complete whole, even though so many complete units emanate from him, he remains the complete balance. 1. Everything animate or inanimate that is within the universe is controlled and owned by the Lord. One should therefore accept only those things necessary for himself, which are set aside as his quota, and one should not accept other things, knowing well to whom they belong. 2. One may aspire to live for hundreds of years if he continuously goes on working in that way, for that sort of work will not bind him to the law of karma. There is no alternative to this way for man. The killer of the soul, whoever he may be, must enter into the planets known as the worlds of the faithless, full of darkness and ignorance. Although fixed in his abode, the personality of Godhead is swifter than the mind, and can overcome all others running. The powerful demigods cannot approach him, although in one place he controls those who supply the air and rain. He surpasses all in excellence. The Supreme Lord walks and does not walk. He is far away, but he is very near as well. He is within everything, and yet he is outside of everything. He who sees everything in relation to the Supreme Lord, who sees all entities as his parts and parcels, and who sees the Supreme Lord within everything, never hates anything nor any being. one who always sees all living entities as spiritual sparks, in quality one with the Lord, becomes a true knower of things. What then can be illusion or anxiety for him? Such a person must factually know the greatest of all, who is unembodied, omniscient, beyond reproach, without veins, pure and uncontaminated. The self-sufficient philosopher who has been fulfilling everyone's desire since time immemorial. Those who engage in the culture of nescient activities shall enter into the darkest regions of ignorance. Worse still are those engaged in the culture of so-called knowledge. The wise have explained that one result is derived from the culture of knowledge, and that a different result is obtained from the culture of nescience. Only one who can learn the process of nescience and that of transcendental knowledge side by side can transcend the influence of repeated birth and death and enjoy the full blessings of immortality. Those who are engaged in the worship of demigods enter into the darkest region of ignorance, and still more so do the worshippers of the impersonal Absolute. It is said that one result is obtained by worshipping the supreme cause of all causes, and that another result is obtained by worshipping that which is not supreme. All this is heard from the undisturbed authorities who clearly explained it. One should know perfectly the personality of Godhead and his transcendental name, as well as the temporary material creation with its temporary demigods, men and animals. When one knows these, he surpasses death and the ephemeral cosmic manifestation with it, and in the eternal kingdom of God he enjoys his eternal life of bliss and knowledge. O my Lord, sustainer of all that lives, your face is covered by your dazzling effulgence. Please remove that covering and exhibit yourself to your pure devotee. O my Lord, O primeval philosopher, maintainer of the universe, O regulating principle, destination of the pure devotees, well-wisher of the progenitors of mankind, please remove the effulgence of your transcendental rays so that I can see your form of bliss. You are the eternal supreme personality of Godhead, like unto the sun as I am. Let this temporary body be burnt to ashes, and let the air of life be merged with the totality of air. Now, O my Lord, please remember all my sacrifices, and because you are the ultimate beneficiary, please remember all that I have done for you. O my Lord, powerful as fire, omnipotent one, now I offer you all obeisances, and fall on the ground at your feet. O my Lord, please lead me on the right path to reach you, and since you know all that I have done in the past, please free me from the reactions to my past sins, so that there will be no hindrance to my progress. End of Sri Isopanisad. The Nectar of Instruction, the Upadeshamrita. A sober person who can tolerate the urge to speak, the mind's demands, the action of anger, and the urges of the tongue, belly, and genitals, is qualified to make disciples all over the world. One's devotional service is spoiled when he becomes too entangled in the following 6 activities: eating more than necessary or collecting more funds than required, over-endeavoring for mundane things that are very difficult to obtain, talking unnecessarily about mundane subject matters, practicing scriptural rules and regulations only for the sake of following them and not for the sake of spiritual advancement, or rejecting the rules and regulations of the scriptures and working independently or whimsically, associating with worldly-minded persons who are not interested in Krishna consciousness, and being greedy for mundane achievements. There are 6 principles favorable to the execution of pure devotional service, which are: being enthusiastic, endeavoring with confidence, being patient, acting according to regulative principles such as Sravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam, hearing, chanting and remembering Krishna, abandoning the association of non-devotees and following in the footsteps of previous acharyas. These 6 principles undoubtedly assure the complete success of devotional service. Offering gifts in charity, accepting charitable gifts, revealing one's mind in confidence, inquiring confidentially, accepting prasadam and offering prasadam are the 6 symptoms of love shared by one devotee and another. One should mentally honor the devotee who chants the holy name of Lord Krishna. One should offer humble obeisances to the devotee who has undergone spiritual initiation, diksha, and is engaged in worshipping the deity. And one should associate with and faithfully serve that pure devotee who is advanced in undeviated devotional service and whose heart is completely devoid of the propensity to criticize others. Being situated in his original Krishna conscious position, a pure devotee does not identify with the body. Such a devotee should not be seen from a materialistic point of view. Indeed, one should overlook a devotee having a body born in a low family, a body with bad complexion, a deformed body, or a diseased or infirm body. According to ordinary vision, such imperfections may seem prominent in the body of a pure devotee. But despite such seeming defects, the body of a pure devotee cannot be polluted. It is exactly like the waters of the Ganges, which sometimes during the rainy season are full of bubbles, foam and mud. The Ganges waters do not become polluted. Those who are advanced in spiritual understanding will bathe in the Ganges without considering the condition of the water. The holy name, character, pastimes and activities of Krishna are all transcendentally sweet, like sugar candy. Although the tongue of one afflicted by the jaundice of avidya, ignorance, cannot taste anything sweet, it is wonderful that simply by carefully chanting these sweet names every day, a natural relish awakens within his tongue, and his disease is gradually destroyed at the root. The essence of all advice is that one should utilize one's full time, 24 hours a day, in nicely chanting and remembering the Lord's divine name, transcendental form, qualities and eternal pastimes, thereby gradually engaging one's tongue and mind. In this way one should reside in Vraja, Goloka Vrindavan Dham, and serve Krishna under the guidance of devotees. One should follow in the footsteps of the Lord's beloved devotees who are deeply attached to his devotional service. The holy place known as Mathura is spiritually superior to Vaikuntha, the transcendental world, because the Lord appeared there. Superior to Mathura Puri is the transcendental forest of Vrindavan, because of Krishna's Rasa Leela pastimes. And superior to the forest of Vrindavan is Govardhan Hill, for it was raised by the divine hand of Sri Krishna, and was the site of his various loving pastimes. And above all, the super-excellent Sri Radhakund stands supreme, for it is overflooded with the ambrosial nectarine prema, love, of the Lord of Gokula, Sri Krishna. Where then is that intelligent person who is unwilling to serve this divine Radhakund, which is situated at the foot of Govardhan Hill? In the Shastra, it is said that all types of fruitive workers, he who is advanced in knowledge of the higher values of life, is favored by the Supreme Lord Hari. Out of many such persons who are advanced in knowledge, jnanis, one who is practically liberated by virtue of his knowledge may take to devotional service. He is superior to the others. However, one who has actually attained prema, pure love of Krishna, is superior to him. The gopis are exalted above all the advanced devotees because they are always totally dependent upon Sri Krishna, the transcendental cowherd boy. Among the gopis, Srimati Radharani is the most dear to Krishna. Her Kunda, lake, is as profoundly dear to Lord Krishna as this most beloved of the gopis. Who then will not reside at Radhakund, and in a spiritual body surcharged with ecstatic devotional feelings, aprakrita bhava, render loving service to the divine couple, Sri Sri Radha Govinda, who perform their Astakaliya Lila, their eternal eightfold daily pastimes. Indeed, those who execute devotional service on the banks of the Radhakund are the most fortunate people in the universe. Of the many objects of favoured delight, and of all the lovely, lovable damsels of Raja Bhumi, Srimati Radharani is certainly the most treasured object of Krishna's love, and in every respect her divine Kunda is described by great sages as similarly dear to him. Undoubtedly, Radha Kunda is very rarely attained even by the great devotees. Therefore it is even more difficult for ordinary devotees to attain. If one simply bathes once within these holy waters, one's love of Krishna is fully aroused. Thus ends the Sri Upadeshamrita of the Rupa Goswami.